Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. We are going to get started in about 30 seconds. So tell a friend to tell a friend, share the link, hop on. I think this is going to be a really great conversation. So definitely want folks hopping on to get this knowledge and get this wisdom. Cool. Okay. Folks starting to hop on. Peace, peace, love. Peace, folks. But Ashanti cannot see the chat, so I'll make sure to relay messages. You're getting some black power fists, some hellos, some pieces, and what's ups.
Right on. Thank you.
All right. So welcome, y'all. We are kicking off our, special edition. This is Community Movement Builders bi-weekly political education session. And for this session, we are highlighting Black August, right? We are highlighting our political prisoners all month. And we are going to be having a really great discussion with Ashanti Alston. He'll tell you everything he needs to know about him. I'm sure we won't leave anything out. But do want to begin just by stating my name is Mel. I use she, her pronouns. I am here representing our political education committee out of Community Movement Builders. And so to get us started, I would like to uplift our core values so that everyone can get a chance to understand what all is being done here. And why we're doing what we're doing. So hopefully everyone can see that on our screen. Yep. These are our core values: self-determination, sustainability, leadership, humanity, solidarity, and Black love. Self-determination. We reject our position as a colonized nation within a nation. We believe that Black people have a right to self-determination. We define this freedom as having the ability to govern our own destiny, control our communities, and create institutions that serve our people. Leadership. The ability to lead is within all of us. As leaders, we must study the world around us. We must understand that leadership comes from the community, and we must work with the people and never abuse or impose our own will. Sustainability. Black communities can create cooperative economic systems that build shared wealth within communities and simultaneously cultivate an ecology rooted in Black love. An ecology that sources our community well-being and facilitates educational, agricultural, cultural, political, and judicial institutions to serve the community needs. Humanity. All life has value. We staunchly oppose all practices and ideologies that devalue human life, including racism, capitalism, classism, sexism, ableism, patriarchy, homophobia, transphobia, and xenophobia. The ability to exist in a world free of oppression is a human right. Solidarity. Okay, there y'all go. Solidarity. We fully recognize that the forces that maintain our oppression are the same forces that oppress other marginalized groups. We stand in solidarity with all oppressed peoples. And finally, Black love. We believe that love is the cultural foundation for collective healing. We believe that we as a people must learn to build trust, respect, and appreciation for one another despite a history of oppression that has torn us apart. So, with that, again, I would like to introduce us to our main event, Baba Ashanti Alston. We are so grateful to have you here with us today. I'm really excited. I know I was trying to not ask you all the questions before we hopped on the live, so now I can ask you all the questions. But I wanted to kick off with just who are you, right? Who are the people and the places and the things who have made you into the man that you are today?
Ooh, well, first, Mel, thank you for inviting me, and on behalf of community movement builders and everything. This is really great. I've so been looking forward to it, and like I said before, the butterflies have already left.
Cool.
I'm good.
Cool.
I'm home. I'm with family. Man, that's a deep question. That could go on for days because there's so many. So I will try to answer it, not taking up too much time. But I always tell people, like, I'm from Plainfield, New Jersey, land of Parliament Funkadelic, right? And I came of age in the 60s. I was born 1954. So the 60s was, everybody got a sense of that historical period. The Black is beautiful, Black pride, Black power. It was almost in a way too, sort of like the end of the civil rights movement, thinking, even visioning. So for me, as this young kid, back then television didn't have the phones and the gadgets that we do today. But people would be gathered around the television and watching the news, or you might see certain demonstrations in your very community. I feel like I came at that right time, and the 67 rebellions was the thing that really, I feel like that brought me in to this new world of revolution, this Black revolution. And I wasn't much of a reader, until that the rebellion in my hometown happened, and the way that it happened, and then afterwards me trying to find more things to read, or the community center down the street was having these specific meetings around Black power and stuff, and I'm going to the community center, but the specifics were that Plainfield's rebellion was unique.
Yeah.
Them brothers and sisters, man, they went and raided this gun manufacturing place right outside the city, and they brought back crates of M1 rifles to the Black community, and they ran the police out. Everything was started by it was so typical in other cities and places too. Police harassing somebody or brutalizing somebody, and people just got tired of it. And when it happened in the Black community in Plainfield, they got so tired of it that they beat this white cop to death, and that was the start of it. But me living, and this is the West End, which is predominantly Black, but me being able to witness that, 13 years old, I'm like, they took it over. And on the block that I live, there was one day where this Black car comes right on the street where we live. It was close to the intersection, and on the top of the car, this Black car was written Black Power in big, bright white letters. And they opened up the trunk and they was giving out certain things. I think it was goods and stuff. It wasn't no guns and whatnot, but it was goods. But I knew that then, as far as how to fight back, how I wanted to participate, I want to fight back like that. I want to fight back in a way that's going to mean something. I mean, our thing with the civil rights movement was, I don't know if I can do that discipline of sitting down and have white folks come spit on me, put cigarette butts on me. That required a lot of discipline. My hat's off. But I know that I wanted to fight at that time. And even though the rebellion in the area they took over only lasted maybe 6 days, it impacted me, like it changed my life. So it didn't matter that, in that 6 days, the National Guard had to come in, and put the rebellion down. And the first thing that they concentrated on was getting the guns, but for me to see it, I know I wanted to fight. So from there, and from someone being not a great reader, I wanted to know everything. And one of the first books that I come across and had heard the name was Stokely Carmichael and H. Brown. So the Black Power book was one of the first books that had a major impact on me. And then closely, maybe even closely with that, Die Nigga Die, and then Malcolm's autobiography. And why I put Malcolm's autobiography last, because I wasn't a great reader, but his book was thick and it had small print. I'm like, oh my God, this is too much. But you start in it, and then you do as much as you can, you put it down, and you find that you got to keep going back to it the more you understand. And at some point I did finish it. And that book also, like Die Nigga Die and Black Power, I'm taking on this new way of being. I want to be about that. And Malcolm talked about revolution by any means necessary. Locally, it was like folks in the community, that was like helping me. Nation of Islam was one of them. I wasn't a member, but I would go to the meetings because they was one of them organizations that would at least be giving you something anti-racist and pro-Black pride, and I think that going there was always helping me because I'm also learning stuff in that Nation of Islam style. They're going to put it out there, their newspaper, and then seeing them and the way that they dress and the way that even with the bean pies, they out on the street and they're
well organized.
Yes, they're organized.
Yeah.
And one of their ministers, who I knew as Linwood Cathcart, it's somebody that I feel like at a certain point he actually was like a mentor. He was a mentor, and even when me and Jihad Abdul Mamit, it was me and him. He was the former chair of the National Jericho movement, but we grew up together in Plainfield. But he was one that even looked after us, in certain ways when he's seen us working in the community as Panthers.
He's gonna be mad at me for putting his business out here right now, but is he older than you?
Linwood? Oh, who? Linwood?
Jihad.
Oh, Jihad. No, I'm 6 months older than maybe 6 months.
Okay.
That's
it.
Okay. But you can tell him that he looks older when you see him. All right.
Okay, for sure.
So anyway, and I say that about the political thing, but I do have to say also, I feel like my family set me up as well, because I come from a loving family, man. And my father used to be a boxer, and he made sure that especially his sons, we all knew how to defend ourselves. But he was a boxer and he was also a preacher, and I always looked up to him, and the rest of the family, my grandmother and my mother, it was a lot of love. And I'm like, I think that was a setup too that helped me to become that Panther person that serves the people, So it was those things there, but those was like major early factors that helped me to get in this direction.
Were your parents like pretty supportive, right? I know you were young, right? And you started running the streets with them men in the black berets with the right.
Yes, they was not. Right? They like, what is happening to that boy? because I'm also the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And when we joined the Panthers, it was like, oh my God, because they saw the same things that the newspapers and the television might show. These is brothers and sisters with guns. And but at this point, I'm 16, and I just did my thing, and when I think back on it, I never asked them. We never had a discussion about it. I would want that with my children now. Like, but me and Jihad and the rest of us, most of us teenagers and a few adults, was just doing what motivated us. That's what we wanted to do. And I know that I'm coming in later at night and stuff, and there was a couple of times me and Jihad had got arrested for like burglaries and other things, but the major thing was a cop had got killed in our hometown, and they came after the main organizers of the Black Panther chapter, who happened to be me and Jihad. And we had to, like, it was 14 months in the jail, but the last 4 months was the trial. And if it wasn't for the fact that my family was able to find a good lawyer, because Jihad had a public defender, man, I think they would have convicted us, and we'd have been at the time facing the death penalty.
Right.
But it worked out that we was able to show that this was a classic frame up. But me and Jihad, even sitting in that jail, we like, well, we done read the newspapers, we done heard the stories about Bobby Seale, Huey Newton, and so many other Panthers that get framed up for different things, that get shot up, and so why we were still committed. Sometimes I think back, I don't know.
Frontal lobe not fully developed yet.
But we were.
But like,
we were. Yeah, and this is where we wanted to be.
Yeah.
So even coming out, it was like once we got out, and it's like we was right back to work.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of going off that, I'm gonna pop in real quick. Kamau said, don't forget that he was a part of your journey as well.
It's funny that he will put himself in everything. The foundation of the Black Liberation Army. That's what he does it all.
He was
there.
Like,
how old are you? Would you stop telling people
he led the Haitian Revolution too?
Yes. Yes. He was with Harriet Tubman. Yes.
I think so. Kind of going off of that, right? So obviously you were captured, right? You became what we know to be a political prisoner. I would say a political prisoner of war, right? Y'all were out there doing work for the movement, and ended up captured. And so I would love for you to talk about, right, just being in this month, the significance of political prisoners of war, and speak. You started to a little bit, but if you could speak a little bit to your particular mindset and demeanor when it came time to make certain decisions that led to your eventual capture.
Yeah. Well, even with the attempt to frame us for that cop killing, I think that it was almost in a way that that would have been being political prisoners, because it was really just because of the work we was doing. But I think it was made real clear to both me and Jihad, like, oh, if they getting ready to execute you, it's on. It wasn't that. It wasn't. Yeah, you would have thought it would been like, oh man, we better get out of this, man. We ain't gonna even graduate from high school. No, we was like, oh no, this is on. We really understand what we've been learning about being in the struggle. And when we did, we got right back out and got back to work. Jihad in Rochester, New York, and me back in Plainfield, and then between Plainfield and New York. But what led to me becoming a prisoner of war was, at a certain point, I got recruited into the ranks of the Black Liberation Army. And it was again, when you understand what it is to be a Panther, you reading everything, You're reading the whole story on and reason why the Black Panther Party exists in the movement, the role it's supposed to play. But you also, in reading the rules and stuff, you see that one of the rules say you can't join any army other than the Black Liberation Army. So that too was with a clear, deep understanding, even as young as we were. And to the point where we could both imagine at some point we might be in that army. And if so, it would be an honor. And so what eventually happens at a certain point where we're trying to hold the chapters together in different places. New Jersey still had a lot of chapters. New York still had Philadelphia, Kentucky, Virginia, and other places, because there was the split in the Panther Party, and that did play a role in why the Black Liberation Army surfaced a little bit before it had intended, right? But still, we had a role to play. And I tell people today, I used to just say, someone recruited me. But I tell people now, like, Safia was that person, because Safia was communications secretary in the Harlem office, and that was her role, to be the connection between the above ground and the underground forces, And little did I know, when I'm working out of the Harlem office and I'm meeting people through her and I'm going to visit the political prisoners, I didn't quite get it that, I'm being vetted, as we say today, right? I'm being trained in certain things. I'm being made aware of certain things. And then there's that certain moment where she says, would you become a member of this particular cell? And our particular mission was to break certain prisoners of war out of the Manhattan House of Detention, infamously called the Tombs. And what am I, like 19 years old? And or maybe 19, 20. And just to be asked was an honor. And the only thing I had to do was just say, well, give me a week and let me come back to you. And I needed that because my partner at the time, my girlfriend, who was also a member of the chapter in Plainfield, she was pregnant. And I'm like, okay, I need to talk with her, have a conversation. And I did. And when I came back, I told her, you not only do you have me, but you have another comrade from our chapter. He's coming too. So you got two. And from there, you go into the ranks of the Black Liberation Army. During the course of things that we had to do, focus on trying to get them out of that Manhattan House of Detention, we made 2 attempts. The first one didn't work, the tunnel. And you can find some of that even in the Daily News, New York Daily News, and all them other newspapers. And at one point, they called us the sewer rats because we had word that there was a tunnel that led up under the tombs. And that was the plan, to find that tunnel, use that tunnel, get up under there. In some way, we was going to get to these political prisoners of war and get them out. Didn't work. There was no such tunnel. So the second thing was, we got to get them out of the visiting room, because they was on trial. And once that trial was over, they were going to ship them to California to face charges of assassinating a police sergeant. But it was in response to the assassination of George Jackson and Jonathan Jackson and the rest from that Marin County courthouse. And so the goal was, if we could get them out before they were shipped back, if they were shipped back there, then they're facing death, So going into the Manhattan House of Detention, okay, it didn't work either. It was a settling towards thing, and I've told the story many times. And I always say I tell the story because the statute of limitations ran out while we was doing time for bank expropriations, and the lawyer said they can't touch you now. So I'm like, well, I want to tell the story.
Yeah. And
I
it's
want
important.
to tell it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to tell it because people need to know that those are the kinds of risks we take in this liberation struggle. This ain't no different from the 19 times or so that Harriet Tubman is in and out from north to the south, going to get people, more people, and every time she knows she's risking her life. You don't get into that mindset that this is a legal struggle. You're doing this in all kind of ways that ain't dangerous.
Right.
You coming into this, you accept the dangerousness of what a liberation struggle entails. And if you can do that, you will find the courage with your comrades and with your movements to do the things you need to do. So it didn't work, but then, but we were able to get away. But later, during the bank expropriation, New Haven, Connecticut, 3 of us are captured, and so that's when the prisoner of war time was, and that was from 1974 to like 1986. And during and all during that time, our mind, especially in the early part, it was always around how are we getting out of this prison. Not, we didn't care what sentence they gave us, none of that. It's always, how we getting out of here? Let's start plotting. Let's start planning. And this is another thing with the newspapers. It didn't matter. You would see all these attempts, especially with BLA folks, that we were making to get out. And I personally, I'm very proud of that. Because we're not feeding into that, oh, we got time, oh, we got to do this, woe is me. No, we got work to do. And wherever we at, them grounds, them prison grounds, them jail grounds, is training grounds, is grounds for raising consciousness of those who are captured alongside of us, whatever their crimes is. It's work, and that's what I feel like we stayed very consistent about. And it just so happens that, sometimes it was successful prison breaks, and a lot of times it wasn't. But I love the fact that so many of our comrades to this day, Sundiata, Jalil, Herman Bell, and others, that fire is still there. Veranza Bowers, that fire, Leonard Peltier, when the first time I heard him on Amy Goodman's show, the fire is still there. And we was in 2 different prisons together. So, and that all, I'm saying that too, because that all feeds into that Black August, tradition that rose up, is to keep that spirit of resistance going to into people's memories, especially at a point where, we suffered a loss, but now we got to recover, and we got to look for folks who are still carrying at least the story on, the message on, and then you start finding folks, and that becomes very important because they can never completely crush any movement, and when they feel like they've captured everybody or they done ran everybody out of the country, there's always the storytellers who happen to be, who I feel is the hip hop folks. When we wasn't hearing nothing, then here comes this strange sound called hip hop, and they are just from Dead Prez to a Public Enemy and a whole bunch, especially in that New York area, where they're raising the names of Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, Black Power, Black Liberation Army. Like, okay, it ain't over. It ain't over. But all that time is like the work we did in the prisons was still raising consciousness of prisoners who was not so political, and that did help. Yeah.
I mean, kind of on that note, you can keep. I'm gonna let you talk forever, but I'm like, let me ask some more of these questions. But kind of on that note, like, what would you say, did you notice a big difference between the ways that folks who were in prison as political prisoners were experiencing their time compared to folks who were in for other reasons? Like what was that difference? Can you talk about what that was?
I think when I went in, you could still feel that revolutionary prisoners movement. Because when I got to Lewisburg and other places, there was comrades there, and there was always study groups, and all of them was just so versed in from ideology to what was going on in the streets, And when I say ideology, they all knew about uh, um, Malcolm X. Malcolm X was still like that number one hero because of the fact that he became revolutionary inside that prison,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
And they knew about George Jackson. They knew about the Attica Rebellion. So when we was coming in and it was obvious we were starting study groups, people were still coming. But I think when I look back on it, like years later, it was also starting to decline. And you would notice that technology was coming into play. One, in terms of how they was constructing new prisons, but also inside of some of the older ones, they was bringing in Walkmans and stuff. They was putting televisions in certain places, and there was all of it was designed to keep diverting people's attention. That in other ways just get them out of that revolutionary stuff. You know, promote more of the fast money stuff. Promote more of that kind of the gangster thing, because that was the thing that we saw on the rise. And again, it became apparent years later how once they crushed our movements, particularly the Panther Party, um, it was how they started to flood the communities with drugs and with guns. And this was during this time that I'm in there, so we don't necessarily see it as it's happening on the street. Even we can catch the news in the newspapers, but the prisoners who were coming in were also, you could tell they were caught up into that fast money, that gangster thing. So it was a different thing that we were facing now. And a lot of our stuff was like, yo, man, let's deal with our heart. They was dealing with, yo, man, we need money. We ain't got time for that other stuff. I'm in it for me. So we saw the decline and stuff, and it got to be harder. And it did, and what the system did too was they were splitting us up too. They was, as much as possible, not allowing us to be in the same prisons together. So for example, I had got shipped from Lewisburg, Pennsylvania to Marion, Illinois, from Marion, Illinois to Lompoc, California, all within the federal system. And then at some point back to Connecticut, where our bank expropriation happened. But other comrades was experiencing the same thing. They kept getting shifted around. And they didn't even have to be all the time Black Liberation Army or Black Panthers. They could be from other formations, but they keep splitting us around. So we knew we were facing something, but then we were still trying to find ways of maintaining a certain communication, especially within the ranks of the BLA comrades inside with the BLA comrades still outside.
So at this point in time, right, kind of at the height of your imprisonment and being shifted around, where are your friends and family? Who are your friends and family? Like what does that look like in terms of your outside support and what that communication was like?
Family was constant.
Cool.
And so the thing with, and especially my family was always there for me. And what I didn't understand at first was like, why they not helping me? Why they seem to be against me? Mm. And it had to be with me sitting in jail at a certain point where I'm realizing, my family loves me. but they ain't want to see their baby boy killed, harmed, or go to prison. So that was hard for them. My mother, my mother passed maybe about 10 or so years ago, but she said I gave her gray hair. I said it was
just one of them.
I said it was my older sisters, right? But look at what they
it's
faced.
To show you, and you're the baby. It was for show.
And I'm the baby, right? But they always came to see me. And my children's mother, she always made that if she didn't come to children, she made sure that the children, because at this point, my daughter was born, and then at some point, 8 months later, 9 months later, my son was born. But she would always make sure that they came up with the family, and so there was always that family support. Outside of that, there wasn't no prison support movement. There wasn't no National Jericho movements. There was, Anarchist Black Crosses and all like that, that was there for us. It was small groups of dedicated people who made sure that they could help us as much as they could. This is when you get into, comrades are still out there from the Panther Party, the people like Yuri Kochiyama, people like that. They was always there for you, and doing the best. But we knew that, we're not going to be, wasn't trying to be either no celebrity prisoner. We was looking for help to get out. And when it was clear, like we probably going to end up doing this time, then we just needed support in other ways. Sometimes we might need some money, but a lot of times we worked prison industry or did some other things, to just be able to make it a little easier for us inside. So that's why, like, even now, like, prisoners, the political prisoners, prisoners of war, and politicized prisoners still need so much help.
Yeah.
It's different and much better, I think, than it was for us, because we didn't really have much at all. But that is so critical now, because it's also saying that we know that they're part of our struggle, and we need to make that manifest how important and integral the struggle on them prison grounds is, as much as in these hood grounds, these neighborhood grounds. We all still one struggle.
Right.
And so we need to keep raising that kind of consciousness.
Yeah. And I think, I know we usually do this type of stuff at the end, but I feel like this is just a really good moment to plug for folks who are watching the Jericho movement, like the significance of the development of the Jericho movement. I'm dropping the name. If someone has like the link or something you want to drop in the chat, help me out here, please do so. Like just the significance of the development of that, right? To be able to provide really sustained support, awareness, tracking of where folks are being moved, how to get folks resources, how to send folks letters, like that has made such a huge difference. What I do know is that that is a movement that to this day still needs support. I know a lot of the leadership would love to be able to transition out of their roles and elevate, right, kind of a new generation of leadership to keep that work going. So light plug for the Jericho movement for folks watching. Definitely keep that work going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of changing gears, but kind of keeping on this mark as well, right? We know you, Ashanti, as BLA soldier, anarchist, Black Panther Party member, right? Sophia, but in relationship with Safia, et cetera, so on. But I would love for you to tell us who you are, right? What are your hobbies? What brings you joy? What drives you, motivates you, pet peeves? Like, who are you as a person? I know that's something that's also really important for you. I'll talk about your book in a second, but I've been reading it, and I know that it's important for people to know who you are.
Okay, let me start off with a pet peeve. Kamal got so many of my books that he used to take from me in Brooklyn. When we both lived in Brooklyn, I would have my table. He'd take my books, and he hasn't returned them yet. I wish y'all would have him return my books.
I got you. Next time I see him, I'm gonna collect each and every one.
Okay. I still feel like you would have to see me and Jihad together. Because when we together, we are still like them 17-year-olds in Plainfield. You will see how silly we can get, how all of that stuff comes out when me and him are together. And I feel like we're serious about what we are, but we're still them 17-year-olds too, you know? And it becomes really important, especially for me, because it's a part that even when I speak of anarchism, I really do, because I want people to really understand how important it is for us and how we are in this world, how we are as just who we are on that individual level, you know, and that we don't have to be that serious political activist or revolutionary, you know. We can have other interests. Like I love Mel, I love interactions like this. And I love knowing that there's folks listening. I love that, you know. That really makes me feel great. Where I'm at here in Providence, you know, I'm always the oldest. But it's like I still love being around these young folks that show that desire to want to carry this forward. Nothing could make me happier. You know, I got sometimes when I describe myself, I say I got a small maroon nation. But the way to really understand is not only just my biological kids. I got two that are 52 and 51. And then the youngest is 16 and 13. You know, the 52 and the 51s is the ones that, you know, I went underground, you know, for. And the fact that they love me to this day, that they're proud of me, I'm like, oh, their mother would have them call me Daddy Freedom Fighter.
Cool.
And then they would have their children call me Granddaddy Freedom Fighter. It means the world to me, you know, in this life that I'm going through that I know is just temporary. But oh my God. And then when I start meeting other people, Kamau included, I'm the only good thing I'm going to say about him. Kamau included, and Get included, Malcolm X grassroots movement included, right? Because they just accepted me as I am, you know, and just, you know, wanted to just vibe, you know. I'm like, yeah, that's what I want. Because I know y'all are doing this work, you know. So writing, I love to write. It's just right now, I'm trying to get back into that writing mode to write finish the memoir, actually. And I never really wanted to even like, why am I writing a memoir? You know, and because I'm on this thing like, I ain't trying to be no celebrity. But I do want to tell my story. And because I want people, hopefully for people to be able to get certain useful lessons out of it. And even if I have to be very vulnerable about certain things that I don't even normally share, nothing makes me happier, you know. So it's things like that. It's seeing my old comrades, like at Asada's memorial. Was it back in May at the church in Harlem?
Yeah.
A lot of my comrades came out who don't usually come out for stuff. Which included some of the George Jackson folks too. When we together, it is such a joy.
It's lit. Y'all know how to party.
We look at each other and sometimes we laugh. And it's a particular laugh that only we know. And then we get to share, you remember this when we tried to do that or when we did this. But in all of that is to say that we really took this war to this enemy. We really did, you know, and none of us are ashamed of it. None of us feel like it was in vain. But I do feel like we all got how vulnerable. Can I cuss for a second? this motherfucking system is when it's confronted by an armed force that has the support of its people.
Right.
When that gun is towards them, it's a whole different story. And some of the lessons, some of the things like that, when we see each other, it's like there's a camaraderie, because there's such the wealth of things that we learn that changed us to be able to like even do the things that we did. But we don't want to be just a one generation thing, because we really do know that this is an intergenerational. This is ongoing until we win. And we're going to have to figure it out on every level as back then. But like Frantz Fanon said, it's every generation's responsibility to figure it out.
Right.
But so those are things that really keep me going, because I still feel like, oh, we can win. That there just allows me to get up every morning and like, okay, it's okay. Not saying I don't go through periods of depression, but when I get it together, it's like, it's okay. We're going to figure this out. And I think different this time is that we feel the love from folks like y'all, that you want us involved. We was angry at the older generation back then, a lot of times to the point where we don't even want to fuck with you. Y'all are too compromising, collaborating. Y'all let us know in so many ways that you want to hear from us. You want us to be there. You want us to participate. Oh, oh yeah, we can do this. We can do this.
Cool. I mean, well, I can say I feel like your memoir, I mean, even just this collection of your writing, is going to be one of the most important texts that folks in our generation could read. So I think you should write it. I truly believe that on a personal level, the ways that you think about things, the ways that you articulate things, I think are things that like we need to hear, honestly and truly. Folks who are in the movement today, in organizations today, like we really need to be listening to the things that you have to say. I had highlighted even just this, right? You said my contradictions and struggles through confusion are offered as necessary. That's your words. I don't know if you remember, right? That's your words. You're talking about like being vulnerable, being open, naming yourself as a non-expert who doesn't know all of the answers, who doesn't have all the answers. And I think a lot of times in movement, we're moving with an expectation that we have all the answers, right? Or there's this idea that we know exactly where we're going, right. And to be able to offer just this idea, right, that our confusion is necessary for struggle and for progress, like that idea in and of itself, I think needs a book. So I'm looking forward to it happening.
Well, thank you for them words.
Those are your words.
I got it. I really do thank you. I just I want to make sure that at some level I'm measuring up to my words, right? But it's important for me to say to people too, I'm trying to measure up, but don't forget I am just a person.
Right.
What Thomas Blood McCrary would say, Panther BLA, he would say, he would want us not to put people up on a pedestal because they can disappoint you, and the whole thing was around, yo, we still human beings now. We, we're not perfect. Remember what happened when we put Huey and them on a pedestal, it caused problems, get to the point where, they're beyond criticism and stuff like that. But now we have a chance to learn how to be with each other in ways that I want to get to know you, not just as my comrade, but I want to get to know you too. Oh, you like to dance, or you like this kind of music, or you like this kind of love, like this is different. and this is what I hope and I'm promoting, is because we have to begin to embrace us in a more holistic way, and that has to be factored into even our political
material
work. But yes,
is material, right?
So the love thing, it's like your values, the values that you read off. It's all of them values. But now let's figure out how to really begin to manifest them values, and just keep in mind, like, we're going to try to do the best we can with manifesting them values. But if we can have that communal support, that kind of, and learn how to really show up for each other, we might stand a chance of being, ready to do all the things we have to do, and at the same time be all that you were ever meant to be and more. So I want that kind. I don't want just a political thing. I want us to be more holistic.
Yeah. So one, Yvette sends her love. I want to make sure I uplift that in the chat. And then two, literally on that. Yeah. So you write. Also, y'all, I'm talking about, I'm going to promote you real quick. I know you said you're not good at it. I'm talking about Anarchist Panther. Ashanti Alston just put out this book like a week and a half ago. Go get it. Go check it out. Y'all, it's pretty dope. I know you're gonna have you're gonna have a tour. You're gonna be out there doing readings and all the things. So pull up when he's in your city. And in the meantime, make sure that you get a copy of this book.
Well, Oakland is on that list.
I know.
I'm not sure. Okay.
Yeah, I got your. I think I got your dates for Oakland when it's confirmed.
Okay.
You start by saying go beyond. You say go beyond. This phrase go beyond, you use it a lot in the introduction.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit more about what you mean by that?
That was around first, initially around nationalism. And it was something I wrote that was called Beyond Nationalism, but Not Without It. And the whole thing was when I was understanding more than just having read everything from Marcus Garvey to Malcolm and even Panther literature, when I'm starting to read different things like the anarchisms to some of the classic works and stuff that were really critical of the state, or the feminisms, the radical feminisms that was really allowing me to see how our sexism and heterosexism played a part in weakening us and narrowing our visions of what kind of world that we want. I saw that as well with the nationalism. So there wasn't a thing like you throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Our nationalism saves us to this day. And this has nothing to do with the creation of a nation state. I don't want to fight for a nation state, even if it's the Republic of New Africa, right? And that's gonna put me in the hot seat.
I was like, we gonna start some controversy here, but it's all good.
And that's a good thing. That's a good, because the democratic, it's a rich democratic thing that keeps us healthy,
right?
And we just got to keep getting used to engaging in them type of things. But the thing around it was like we still have to like enrich our nationalism with the learnings from the radical feminisms and the other different perspectives that was out there. And I felt like the anarchisms could also enrich that. And that means that our revolutionary Black nationalism would be forced to continue growing as well, because it would mean that we are also being more inclusive now. And when you really start including women, and you start including getting away from the elders in charge and the younger folks and the queer folks, you're including a chance to open up to different ways of viewing what our liberation could look like, and that for me was like not only necessary, but it was like exciting. It was exciting. So no longer, we're not talking about The Nation of Islam, they had a vision, and it was a capitalist vision, but it was a vision to get away from this monster, and it had a strong sense of Black pride in the style that it presented itself. The Panther Party too, like we saw ourselves as that internal colony, but we was not only talking about liberation of the colony, but revolution in the mother country, you know. But now I'm learning more and more about like that would still would have wanted to set up some kind of revolutionary government in these so-called United States, whereas now I'm like, well, we got to go beyond the borders. And no, why do we want to set up a government that has a state that has them same structures that's going to enforce certain controls? And we see what happened in Cuba. We see what Cuba I love, but you see what happened with the Russian Revolution and the Chinese Revolution and the liberation movements in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, all which claim to have won. But then when you really look at them, they didn't win. They just reproduced some kind of other oppressive and class society. So it's like, how are Black people going to deal with our problems here? And I don't want a nationalism that just accepts uncritically that we're going to have some kind of Black government somewhere. No, we can do better than that. And the Zapatista, my times at going to Mexico and seeing what the Zapatistas doing would be further proof, in a sense, to me, that we got to be open to creating something that ain't in the books. Mm-hmm. It ain't in the books. And how can it be? Because this situation here ain't none of them classic and theoretical folks, ideological folks have ever dealt with. You ain't dealt with a society that African people were brought here on slave ships. Turtle Island was taken over. It was conquered. It ain't a past thing. It's a present and at least for the immediate future thing, because we ain't getting rid of it no time soon. So the conquest still goes on. This is still Turtle Island. So what might my nationalism look like? I would have to be in constant dialogue with the indigenous forces that also want Turtle Island back. I can't be claiming nothing, but I can sit down with others and we can imagine together what a new world might look like that goes from the north to the south. Because indigenous folks will tell you that they don't do the border thing. They're all one from north to the south. So it's new thinkings that got to come into play. So for me, even our nationalism has to always be open to new ways of looking at our situation. Yeah, and I go and at some point I want to sit down and flesh that out. I'm always having conversations with people. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? But it's certain indigenous folks who I'm close to. I want to have it with them because I know they got certain feelings too about, some of our goals as Black movements. Well, why can't we talk about it? Yeah. So that's me. There can't be no preordained answers to this stuff. That can't happen. Right. So the openness means that it has to be, for me, more anarchistic, because it means we'll figure it out as we go. And don't get so locked into like it has to go a certain way that you done figured out because so-and-so laid it out in 1917, or so-and-so laid it out in China with Mao and them in the mountains or whatever. Not us.
Yeah, I think one really good example that I continue to come to is like the Haitians been figuring it out, been working through it, right, for over 200 years at this point. And yeah, so as your two questions. Could you just state as clearly, as succinctly as you can for folks, like, what is anarchy? Like, how should we understand what it is? And then I know you've been having these conversations, right, with other of your comrades, right, of your peers in the movement? What have those conversations been like?
Okay. I always try to be clear with folks. I'm not a classic anarchist. That means like I've read Bakunin, I've read Kropotkin, I've read Malatesta and the Mexican Revolution with Emilio Zapata and other folks, and other readings that dealt with different even European struggles, and I get the principal understandings of them. Like in order to create a society where there's no authorities over you, you know, that are in a position to govern your life, even if they claim they're doing it in your best interest. I get that from the classic anarchist stuff. As I go on and I'm reading and stuff, I'm also understanding anarchy as just like that's just the way so many people have lived for thousands of years because they didn't have a state, you know, but they were small groups and they was all over, you know, the planet. It really didn't matter, but a lot of times the circle, as an example, got involved where they sit around in circles and discuss things and come to certain collective decisions, you know. So when I'm reading all like this, there wasn't always a state. It's just the same thing that when I was a part of critical resistance, I come to an understanding that people have not even thought about. There hasn't always been prisons, you know. Sometimes that's just a aha moment. So what about if the fact that states have a certain history, then how did people make them decisions? You'll see that there was different collective ways that they made decisions. And as we come on, it's just that people have been building on different ways to improve how to make collective decisions on a more horizontal level instead of being so beholden to hierarchy, top down, that small group of brainiacs up there that making all the decisions for us as if we're just not just cannon fodder, but we're just pawns on the chessboard, you know. So anarchism that continues to grow is always looking for ways to empower the people on the bottom, or as Muhammad Abdul would say, it's a anarchism from below. That means the people are always the ones who are most important. Empower the people to make their decision. Have faith that the people can make their decisions. We used to say in the Panther Party, have faith in the party, you know. But then at a certain point, trying to be like other parties, it also means that you are accepting that your role is so vital that you must be the leadership over the people, you know. And why does that have to be? So the anarchism and the anarchy are together, but one is like, what's all the ways that we live even today in our communities that don't require, you know, some small group telling us what to do? What ways do we protect each other? What ways do we take care of each other? What ways do we watch over the children in the playground as they play to make sure that they're safe? You know, all kind of ways. What's all the ways we have discussions in the barber shops, in the beauty parlors? You know, there ain't nobody controlling the conversation. When you in that barber shop, once somebody starts it, it's open. What is jazz? Jazz, especially the jam session, it ain't nothing but an anarchist space because you invite people to come in. And the special thing about jazz, you come in as you are, right? And you're invited to participate. And the thing I like about the jam session is because that is how I envision not just mainly Black movement, but you know, that queer person there, you haven't let that person in a long time. They waiting to come in, right? That woman over there, you know, she wants to come in. That young kid back there wants to come in. That disabled person wants to come in. That space got to change. That's because this is a jam session. You just ask neighbor, bring your gifts. Come in, do your best. It's okay. We're gonna jam. And I feel like that's one of them ways of looking at even our Black experience. What's the anarchistic things that are already there? that we just need to build on. What's the different ways that we can do things? And ain't nobody saying, no, there's just one way you can do this. There's just one way you can do this community garden. There's just one way you can do your spiritual practice. You know, there's just one way that you can have your organization speak up for your community, represent your community. No, let's figure this stuff out as we go. You know, and creativity, that back to that jam session again, creativity is one of the main factors. We can be creative. We are creative people. You know, so that's my thing with that. It's like we don't have to have every aspect planned out and someone telling like, oh, it goes this way. No, let's figure it. And a lot of things are right in front of our face.
Yeah.
That we just need to figure out how can we start bringing these things together that really do allow us to take back control over our lives and be able to have other things in place that at least makes it harder for small factors to be able to rise up to control the group.
Yeah. No, I hear that. I appreciate that. I have like maybe two that I wrote down, but I'm sure I have hundreds. And then I know I see a couple of questions in the chat. Y'all keep adding questions to the chat. But yeah, just on that note, I feel like the way that you move, again, the way that you write, the way that I've seen you speak and show up in space even, is a real embodiment of the fact that you do, like, you have this feminist practice, you have this like anarchism practice, right? Or at least strive to, right? I know you're not gonna say you're perfect. I know, I saw, which I get, right? And that's, even in that, right, the willingness and openness to like name humanity, to name uncertainty, right, to name imperfection as material realities that we're confronted. And I think that a lot of times in movement space or out of movement space, in relationship, whatever it might be, like the ways that like capitalism and patriarchy manifest aren't always so overt, but they'll show up like, it's not always like misogynoir or overt sexism or matricide or those things that we see headline, but it's sometimes in this idea of wanting to center like dominance or wanting to center certainty or order and rule, right? And so I've heard you speak about it a little bit, right? And accounting for this understanding of, right, a need for structure, which you also have written about in your book where you've noticed there's moments where it's like, okay, we need structure here in this avenue, in this area, accounting for the understanding of things like having revolutionary optimism, right? Having sense of organization and what is clear for you of like militancy, right? Kind of like, how do you move through those contradictions? How does that kind of all parse out into where you are showing up in these conversations? Oh, what we didn't get to, right? In these conversations with some of your peers, right, who might be more like staunch nationalists or old school nationalists, from what I'm hearing, right? If we talk about this idea of like go beyond, what does that look like? And again, like for you as a person, but then also kind of thinking about the impact that you hold as a person who it's like, well, you can't say that I'm not about that life, because like you, in fact, right, we're here. You are here because we are honoring Black August. We are honoring our political prisoners of war, right? So yeah, would love to hear you talk a little bit more about whatever you have to share on that realm.
Well, it's I've struggled with my comrades around my evolution. It's so funny, even when they was going through their own, but it's like, and this is in prison too, particularly in Lewisburg, because by the time I got to Lewisburg, from the trial of the bank expropriation and stuff, I'm already reading different things. Like Eric Fromm was one of the first persons I read that was I think he was out of the Freud school too, but he was a sort of socialist, you know, and he wrote a book. Let me tell you about the first book of his I read. I'm on trial in New Haven, and this white woman who was part of our support group gave me this book called The Art of Loving. And ignorant me thought that she was flirting with me. Right? I take the book, but now I'm back in my cell and stuff. And it just had me, we back and forth to trial every day, but I'm a little bored. I pick up the book, well, I ain't got nothing else to read. And then I'm starting to read the book, and Eric Fromm is breaking down love and loving from a very political perspective and a very psychoanalytical perspective, showing the importance of just understanding how love factors in our lives and what happens when we don't factor it, and we allow the culture that we in to just frustrate, our attempts to love or be loved. And so now I'm like reading the book ferociously because it would make me think how groups were becoming so political that that you don't even deal with love, or if you say it, it's really just rhetoric, But I'm like, oh my God, if we had an understanding like this, I wonder if we would have treated each other better. Because it made me think of the Panther experience. It made me think of what happened before and after the split. What happens when, it's not so much what the counterintelligence program does, but it's about those things about the empire culturally inside of us that we never thought to consider, yet we read in Frantz Fanon and everything else. So now, I want to have conversations with my comrades, but I'm talking love, right? And it's so funny that some prisons, they're like, well, Shanti, why are you reading all this feminist stuff? Why are you reading all this stuff about love? What's going on with you? The hint being like, are you changing on us sexually? See? And I'm like, no, man, listen, look at this. Read this. I'm all for you to read. But as I'm understanding more about this struggle and some of the things that we kind of ignore to our detriment, I want to talk with my comrades about it. And listen, usually you come out the Panther Party, you got to be ready. If you're putting out something, you got to be ready to defend it. Mm-hmm. And I do, and we do go at it. But some comrades are Muslims now. Some comrades are holding to that old Marxist-Leninist stuff. And so, we go at it, but we're all comrades. We're still trying to get over them walls or dig that tunnel under the walls or grab that truck coming in through the gates. But I am understanding more of things that we did not do well, divorced from the counterintelligence program. Because my understanding of dialectics says that what goes on inside is the real shit. The outside just conditions and does that other stuff. So I'm like, well, man, what kind of things could we have done to improve us that would make us stronger, And then later it's the same thing when I'm into the anarchisms but it's like I got a debate with comrades of different forces. The classic debates between the Marxist-Leninists and the anarchists, what always comes around the state. And I'm becoming convinced that the state is a problem. And they're still convinced like, no, we need a revolutionary state. And I'm like, where is it working? You can't point to nowhere that is working. And so, so for me, it becomes a question of integrity. I'm on my journey. Everybody's on their journey. But what I'm learning, I want to be true to what I'm learning. And that also means that my conversation is also changing. When I'm conversing with my comrades at a certain point, it's less the politics and more, yo, how you doing? How's the family? And stuff like that, because I'm beginning to learn that those areas are just as political as anywhere else, but we never talk about them. So it means we got to look at what, that black man thing, or we only talk about certain things, but we will never get vulnerable and talk about other stuff, and I found that to be part of the problem. Why can't we talk more? And then coming out, it's the same thing, but coming out is also finding more folks of like mind and like heart that want to try to move in different directions. So, and the thing I end with is that, and I did find them. Just recently, I was in Harlem. Just last week, the Anarchist study group had organized a whole month of Black August events. I was there for Saturday and Sunday, and the first day was Black Anarchism. I was the main speaker. The second day was a fundraising party for groups that are working in the Congo and in the Sudan. Both of them was just like these really great turnouts. And yes, mainly young, Black, queer, and straight anarchists. But it was the first time I've been, it's just that it was like all Black. And I rarely get an all Black audience. The white folks come.
About to say, you gotta come to CMB events.
but I work with CMB, so I know that. But you know, it's like the first time I've been in such a audience. But the second day at the party, some of my comrades were there who Kamal knows. Zaid Muhammad, my general Tariq, BJ, a former member of the Panther Party, also, and Brother D, who also Kamal knows, because some of us was part of Black House when we all was in Brooklyn and New York. But my comrades it was the first time seeing me in my element, right, with these young folks, and they were clearly impressed. But I liked how one of them, he was selling Panther memorabilia in terms of T-shirts and things, and he wanted to gift one of the performers. She did hip hop. Trans woman did hip hop, and when he came and walked in, and when she was done, and wanted to give her a shirt, but he said, he first said, "Here, brother, this is for you," and then he called himself, right? He said, "Here, sister, this is for you." And what moved me about it was his attempt to get it, not so much to get it right, but to be aware that this is a new thing happening now, a really great thing, and everybody in the room got it. So there was no thing like, you know, telling him, "Oh, yo, brother, da 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 da." But it showed me that even my comrades, who I kind of felt might have been ones who would be resistant, they wasn't, you know. And for me, that's like, oh yeah, we can do this. We can start changing these spaces up, so some of that narrow shit can start getting broke down, you know, and then that we can realize that, you know, we can be greater, more powerful in terms of this liberation struggle than we even imagine, if we just give it a chance and open up. If we just get out of the way and let things happen. Because them young folks that was there, they were ready to go, just as community movement builders, All African People's Revolutionary Party, BAP, and others. They're ready to go, and we got to keep figuring out how to make that happen. So it was even with my generation, like, oh, maybe it ain't as bad as I think, you know. But I want to see it happen more.
Oh, getting some praise in the chat. I heard you mention the state. I'm gonna uplift a question from the chat. I don't know. Maybe you can see this now.
I don't see nothing yet.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I do.
I was like, I just did something new. I thought it worked.
Okay, love. Is it Love I Am?
Love I Am. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Right. The anarchist conversation is rare in spaces that connect to a more collective or coexisting mindset. How do you see abolition of state control being achieved within any specific community?
I think it happens in very small ways, and ways that a lot of times is not even recognized. I think, for example, um, I'm gonna take the queer community because their struggle is so hard because of the what they have to deal with just wanting to be in this world as they are and who they are. They gotta deal with a lot of heartbreak, abuse, pain, and so many other things. Even with being in the streets, if somebody look at them and identify them a certain way, they got to be worried about being attacked and all this other stuff. Um, what happens for me is that they I watch them over the years where they have to create communities just for them, just for their own protection and survival. And in there, I find that they are also trying to love each other, trying to live life with each other, have fun with each other, develop families with each other. And they don't, all this is outside of the state. But we never really see it as they're like a community.
Yeah.
They're like a community. Yeah. And then there's other folks who are outside of the state, but they're like rebels. Mm-hmm. And they're into their own thing. And I'm like, why can't we connect with them? I don't care if they're even bikers or if they Rastas, or some of the other folks that come here from other countries, from the motherland and stuff. And just because of the circumstances, they got to figure out how to survive. And they realize that the state ain't got nothing for them.
Yeah.
And then there's folks like us. And we try to develop different programs and land projects and other initiatives like that, which as much as we can, we are trying to do it with keeping the state out. Mm-hmm. In fact, the potential for success lies in how much we can keep the state out. But we got to see that as embryonic. Mm-hmm. We got to see what the queer communities do as embryonic. And what happens, there's silos a lot of times. So how do we break them silos down? How do we get each other to see, no, we can only do this together. Yeah. We can only do it together, but it does call for respect. And it does call for learning how to show up, for each other, respecting our differences, respecting our gifts and everything. Let's figure that out. So that's one of the things that I learned is like, when I was living in New York and stuff, sometimes you'd be on the train and you would watch how people do on the train. This was way back. And they would have the beatbox. And next thing you know, they're playing the beatbox. But it's not just them dancing. You start to watch at certain times, others will start getting up dancing to the music too. Like, there it goes. There it goes. We are always trying to find ways of enjoying life and being in community. Can we look around and see where these things are actually happening? And how can we, we don't want to take them over. Let's see if we can help them. Like, we can support it. That's different from the Vanguard thing. That's different from things that, let's get our people in there and let's get them access to our study groups and they'll be members the next day. We don't need to do that. And then the street organizations too, if we can figure out a way to pull them out of that stuff that they do that causes a lot of harm, maybe they can do what the Young Lords did at certain points, what Bunchy Carter did in LA, with I think it was the Slawsons or one of them groups that he was the leader of. He brought them into the Black Panther Party, which shows that any group even like that got the potential if we want to learn how to work with that potential, and offer what we can. And also be open to what we may be learning from others too. And not like we always got to have all the answers, because we don't.
Yeah.
So I see possibilities. I just refuse to see doors closed and no problem. I want to learn to see differently so that I might stuff that might be right in front of my face. Oh, we can do this.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I like what you said about embryonic as well. I know, I
Yeah,
can't remember who I was reading, but they talked about kind of their entry into the underground and who they encountered, right, was queer folks, was women, right? It's those communities oftentimes who have the blueprint and who are already kind of moving and shaking and
yeah,
doing real work in those spaces, and that's again because of the circumstances.
yeah.
Oh wow, I did another thing. This looks so much better. Y'all bear with me, first little live slash all the things. I have another really good question here. I'm gonna see if we can get it out. Okay. Right now, we see the rapid expansion of the surveillance state and converging of military and of police. What public advice would you give to someone today deciding to pick up the torch of the BLA?
Ooh,
Great question.
that is a great question, and that's a really difficult one. In light of the fact that there's not a Black Liberation Army out there anymore, but we're here. I think that this might be real intergenerational stuff too, especially from those of us who have experience either in the underground or like Safia Bukhari. Safia, the role she was supposed to stay in was the contact point between above and under, you know. But uh, what I'm trying to say is that we ain't gonna, as far as I feel, we are not gonna get our liberation unless we're prepared to fight on every level. We got to be real clear on that. That fighting might look different with every generation, but we ain't getting out of this without being convinced that we got to bring this monster down to its death, to its death. And it happens in all kind of ways, you know. But especially one picking up the torch of the BLA, you're talking about the creation of an underground. And the underground ain't always like the folks with the guns and what we call the TE getting the technical training. It today, for an example, you got ICE picking up folks, immigrants and others. But what happens if those same folks in our communities don't want to get picked up, but they want to get out of they want to get away? We all know about this Underground Railroad and how that started and the type of people even that operated it, many of whom were nonviolent folks, white folks. There's ways and roles that I think that we don't wait for crisis to do these things. One of the things I learned from Deruba Ben Wahad is no, you do them well before. Don't wait for it because you know certain things is going to happen. You know that the success of your movement is going to invite more repression, you know, so you don't wait. What ways can we already start putting certain things in place? You know, what ways can we develop real concrete feelings that we can survive, we can grow our own foods. We got so many folks who got all kind of skills, whether medical, counseling, the folks who know acupuncture and everything else, Kokai and the work that he does and stuff. There's so many things that we do that if there was a return of anything like the BLA, you are already putting things in place. You are already doing the kinds of work that are community work anyway, that would allow for the survival and furtherance of that kind of force in our struggle, you know, always in coordination with the struggles going on in the community. And as many of us learn, you know, we always was very clear, like the gun cannot be in command. You know, it cannot be in command, but we ain't doing this without that kind of understanding of that Malcolm by any means necessary approach. We ain't doing this no other way. I think that the kind of intergenerational struggle or conversations that we can have would help, especially younger generations, to um, be able to prepare in much holistic ways. I think this time, much more holistic. That really takes into what kind of move is that on an individual level or as a group level. What kind of things will you face? You know, and we got stories, and some of us. I don't think there's been a lot of writings. I know I want to. I look forward to Sekou Odinga's book, which I heard might be coming out this year. I hope that Daruba gets that book out, because both of them have so much to offer. But the sisters, that was also part of the different forces from the RNA to the Panthers to the underground. It's harder to get them to tell their stories.
Yes.
And I can tell you one, the first thing she'll tell me, she say, loose lips sink ships. I'm like, yo, man, if we don't tell that story, these white folks are going to tell it, and they're going to tell it in a really bad way. We got to tell what we can. And it ain't no sensationalism. It's what we can that will help you and further generations not make the same mistakes and increase the chances that we can win. I just want us to to share more.
I wonder, maybe this might be a conversation we could have more offline, but I also wonder how much of a safe space we're creating for women from movements to tell that story.
An important conversation.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I have another question also from Love. It's 2 parts. So I'm gonna read the first part and then I'll post the second part. Native American creator Brown Girl Pride argues that left and right aren't opposite ends of a line, but points on a circle, an artificial European ideology where the two ultimately swap roles. Rather than fitting ourselves into this binary, she suggests breaking from it entirely. Given your anarchist leanings, do you align with this perspective? Why or why not?
Man, that question might be above my head.
I was like, let me know if you want me to reread it.
Man. I don't know. Let me give it some.
Yeah, no.
and listen, I will be one to say, like, I don't even know what that means.
Cool.
Right.
I can help you with this one.
But there's a challenge with it.
You're so smarter than me, so let me see if you know.
Yeah, there's always a challenge with it, and I think it's even important. That's why, like, that whole thing about me, man. Like, just because I've been through some stuff, I don't know everything. I'm in here learning too, man. We is in this learning, but I do get the binary thing, and I do feel like, yes, we got to break out of that binary thinking and binary movements. And I think that's why I feel like our struggle, maybe right here in North America, offers so much because it is obviously a growing influence of, say, writers like Audre Lorde, say writers like fiction, non-fiction, science fiction.
Octavia Butler,
and others, because I think that, and this is me really from listening to the women in my life who read Octavia and all these and these other women writers, because they realize that the next stage that we got to move into is to break out of these European binary thinkings, the ways that we have been doing things, the breakdown, man, woman, this and that, or organizations that only one way, and leader led, and there's got to be so many different experiments, almost in a sense, that we have to do to break out of ways that this system has taught us in ways that we've had no awareness of. I mean, I had no awareness that there was other ways organized than top down until I started reading the anarchist stuff. So are there other ways that we can do this that are non-binary? You know, there's other things I'm learning even from reading certain spiritualities, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, that are non-binary, or they'll say non-dual. It just gives us a sense that there is so much more that we're missing in the ways that we think we understand the world that really limits us. And I mean, we're using all these different words, but it just comes down into practice. How does that mean for us to actually be in this world and with each other that is asking for something different? I think some of it is in, I guess in the last maybe generation, how look how people dress different, you know, and from the nose rings, earrings, lip rings, and all this other stuff to how people are like they're okay with their bodies or whatever their bodies look, you know, especially women and queer folks. And I think people got to get a sense that it represents us being at a time where it feels like a seismic shift. We got to really understand, like, yeah, things is really changing, and you need not hold on to that table for balance when the whole ground is shifting and you're resisting. Let all that European stuff go. I don't care if they did it in Africa, wherever. We're being offered a different way of being in this world as we're struggling to be able to see each other different, to feel each other different, to fight even differently. What might an underground look like if it's really challenged to be different from the ways that we organized it in the past? You know, I'm trying to be open to all of that. But I think, yeah.
So for the record, we had a lively conversation amongst membership a couple weeks ago around do-rags and bonnets in public spaces.
Yeah.
For the record, Ashanti, where do you stand?
Man, listen, and this is new to me too, right? Because it was like 3 weeks ago, I'm a YouTube person. I watch YouTube news and all this other stuff, and something came up around the bonnets that the historically Black colleges don't want. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Because the whole thing seems around, and the historically Black colleges have been so corporate for years.
Yeah.
So what are you just now being very open that you want to fit people into that European corporate world and that European patriotic world? Y'all stop wearing them pants hanging off your ass and stop have the bonnet on your head and all that other stuff. It's all still a sign to me that the world is changing. And they're now trying to figure out how to stop that. So all the different ways that the resistance happens is we got to be aware of. But we need to get to all them students like, no, y'all okay. You know, you mean to tell me because I got on these pajama looking things and the pajama and the bonnet, I don't know how to work this computer or all these gadgets? Or you want me to fit into your empire? I hope that they resist. Because what kind of world do we want where you got to come with the suit and tie and all the other stuff to show your loyalty to this monster? Like, no, at least that's how I'm seeing it now. But like I said, it's new. I'm like, y'all better keep wearing that stuff.
I'm going to cite you in future arguments. I mean, I low-key already do for many other reasons. You just give me more to cite you with. I feel like I know we're reaching towards an ending point. I know we talked a little bit about this before we hopped on, and I really feel like this, again, embodiment of just like who you are and what you care about and how you hold balance in this literary creative activity that you embarked on in your introduction. And you said don't laugh, but I'm like, I don't think there's anything to laugh about here. It says, let us put Audre Lorde and Malcolm X in a sentimental, intimate, embracing conversation here. In my imaginary world, I stumbled upon a conversation between the two elders as they sat chilling in front of the Panther office on 123rd and Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard, Harlem, of course. Right. And then you go into this conversation between, right, Audre Lorde and Malcolm. Like, those are two distinct figures who I don't know. I don't know that they ever really crossed paths in those ways. So yeah, can you talk a little bit more about what that exercise was for you and why those two folks, and even like this is the story that you open up your whole book with. So like, why is this so important?
I so appreciate your questions. Yeah, great question. What I wanted with that was to show imagination. Because it's really that imagination just itself is so important in this, for us in this struggle, that if we can't imagine something different, we can't create anything different, you know. So but the imagination also comes into play, like if you want to bring two people together who obviously in the real world have never met, what might you want that conversation to be like? Years ago, I had read, I forget what prison was, but it was a imaginary conversation between, I think it was Kropotkin and Lenin. And it was really very useful for me because it had them actually in this debate and the pros and cons of each of their arguments. But so somewhat like with Audre and Malcolm, I was like, man, I want people to come with me and imagine that they really are right by the Panther office and they're good. Number one, they're good. You know, ain't no negative vibes, anything. They just sharing, they just kicking it. And it's like, why can't we do that? Why can't we see the gifts of both of them in conversation? Even if they debating about something, yeah, that's right on, cool. Don't look at any of that like they're opposed to each other. But I wanted something that they're taking care of each other. They're joking a little bit. There's a little bit of interaction from the crowd around them. Can we be like that in this struggle and not be so serious? I think that so serious part gets us into so much trouble because it means we can't be just human, you know. So that was like what I wanted to bring out from that. Just be human, you know. And it allows us to really feel like I don't have to put myself in a rigid political jacket and a certain form of behavior that really just imprisons who I am in the world, you know, to suit, you know, whatever the organizational requirements are. No, just be, you know, just be.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, again, I'm going to let you have the last word, but I'm just going to wrap us up real quick. So again, y'all, get you a copy of Anarchist Panther, right? It's collections of Ashanti's writings. Whenever this memoir comes out, get you that too. I accidentally got 2 copies because I ordered one and it wasn't going to get here quickly enough. So then I went and bought the other one. Okay, so I got 2 copies and, you know, maybe we can raffle one off. But yeah, again, thank you so much for folks who hopped on. Thank you, Ashanti, for all of your wisdom. I know we had technical issues when we had you on the panel last year. And so I was really excited to be able to have like a more one-on-one intimate conversation with you here today. I feel like you have a lot to share with folks and we definitely didn't want to lose that. But yeah, I want to let you have the last word. If there's anything else that you want to say, any words of encouragement, wisdom, motivation to share with us as organizers. Yeah.
Man, yeah, I mean, definitely, like I said, I love these kind of encounters because these really mean a lot to me. That we're in here talking, we're getting to know each other. I I hope that if people get anything from anything they've heard me say or write, that this world we want to create is open and is pretty much asking us to just come on in and to come on in. Even if we talk about a portal, I think that's where I'm at right now. And even if it's scary, you see the door there, you want to open it, go through, but it's scary. Just think of your community, and sometimes it's that community that gives you the courage to do something that's even scary to do. But to go through means that also you okay with you coming out different in ways that you would not even have imagined. Our world can be such, without the oppressions and all that other stuff. To be like the indigenous folks say, in right relations, not only with each other, but with all, the grass, the sea, the sky, planets, everything. Why can't we imagine like that and be willing to do whatever it takes to get all these monsters out of our way, wherever they might be on the planet? We can do it. So I love y'all. That's my last word. I love y'all. And thank you.
We love y'all. We love you too. Like, really appreciate this time. So, all right, y'all. Have a good rest of your Sunday. And peace out, y'all.
Power to the people.
All power to the people.
All power.